them. In the year 2000, I met my wife Claudine. I met Claudine around at the end of so year 2000 we met, and then 2002 we got married. So we met in 2000, a year and a half. We dated, and then we got married in 2002, and then May 2003 we walked into the maternity ward of Wiscos Hospital. We walked into that maternity ward as a family of two. So I carried my wife, put her in the car, and we drove to Wiscos in Leytonstone, East London. Still remember the place close to our house. We walked into that maternity ward, a family of two. The next morning, we emerged from that maternity ward, and we're now a family of three. That was 2003. And then in 2004, sometime in April 2004, me and my wife Claudine walked into the maternity ward again. Then we were a family of three. We came out of that maternity ward and we became a family of four. And it began to dawn on me that every time one travels to the maternity ward and comes out, one grows. It began to dawn on me that every time one goes to the maternity ward and returns, an increase happens. And in this series that I've called Compulsory Visits, we know that successful people will visit the manual. I preached it 3 weeks ago. We know that successful people would always find time to stand in the mirror. I preached that 2 weeks ago. We also know that successful people would always find time to use the lavatories of our world. They'll go to toilet. I preached that last week. You know, this week, I found one more place that everyone who must be successful must visit and visit frequently and compulsorily. Today I want to preach a sermon I've entitled The Maternity Ward. Turn to your neighbor and say, the maternity ward. Galatians chapter 4 verse 19, my little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. Genesis 1:8, and God blessed them and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and every other living thing that moves the earth. The maternity ward. Let's pray this morning. Father, we want to thank you for your word that is coming to us. We ask that the entrance of your word will bring understanding, that we will walk away here transformed. We will walk away here from this place changed. Walk away from this place better than we came. In Jesus' name, and all God's people said, well, let's begin by looking at what I've called the principle. If you look around you, you are going to, if you are a keen observer of life, a keen observer of the world, you are going to agree with me that there is no success without reproduction. There is no success. You can't say anything is successful if there's no reproduction. There's no success without reproduction. And this is a fundamental principle that came about from the very beginning of human history. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, God was going to ask them to go be successful. And the very first thing he told them, he said, be fruitful and multiply. There is no success without multiplication. There is no success without reproduction. You can't tell me that you are successful without reproduction. You can't tell me there is success anywhere. If I look at a place, if I look at a thing, if I look at an organization and I don't see reproduction, then I am not seeing success. So from the very beginning of human history, God comes into the picture. He talks to them about being fruitful. He talks to them about being successful. And he tells them that to be fruitful and to be successful, you have to go off and multiply. Turn to your neighbor and say, there's no success without reproduction. And I began this sermon with that illustration. Here we are right now. I've got a family of 4. My second daughter the other day was interviewed by Oxford University. Catherine just called me the other day and told me she has an interview with KPMG. Trinity is moving on. Jahazian is perhaps one of the best students in his class. But all of that, we can look at our family and say, I can look at my wife and say, Claudine, we have a successful family. But that family became successful when someone began to do what? Reproduce. There's no success without reproduction. You're not successful if there is no reproduction. So I have Catriel, I have Gabriel, I have Trinity, I have Jahaziel. And I'm not just talking about biological reproduction here. In every realm of life, if you look and there's no reproduction, there's no success. If you look at something is not reproducing, something is not multiplying, then you can look at that and say, you are not successful. In our text, we're going to look at the personality in our text. In our text, we have the man known as the eminent Apostle Paul. You know the Apostle Paul. There is no seat in the universe where Paul doesn't have a cathedral built after his name. Well, you go to England, St. Paul's in central London. Used to be where I used to walk around that area. St. Paul's Cathedral. My goodness, everywhere in the world you are going to find something named after St. Paul. And theologians will say that Jesus manufactured Christianity while Paul marketed it. Have you heard that before? Maybe Jesus manufactured Christianity while Paul marketed it. I've said this only to say that Paul, this man that everybody knows was a successful Christian, I can tell you now that there's every Sunday one pastor somewhere will preach a sermon that has something to do with Paul. How is this man this successful? Our text gives us a clue. We know that Paul visited the temple. He went to the temple and he would read the Bible. So Paul was a compulsory and frequent visitor to the manual. We know that. We know that. Paul will visit the manual. In fact, Paul was a guy who, at one time when he was on death row, have you read that scripture? Paul is about to die. They are going to kill him. And he's, I preach a lots of sermon on it. Paul is about to die. He's in Mamertine prison. They are going to behead him. Scholars believe that Nero beheaded Paul. Paul is about to die. And Timothy visits Paul. Paul is saying, go and bring me the book. Let me tell you. If I'm in prison and I'm about to die, and I still have an appetite, say, Pastor, what is your last wish? I'm not quite sure my last wish will be a manual. I'll probably say, you know what? Can you make me some oha soup? Yeah, with some orishi stuff inside it. I'll probably say, you know what? Can you get me, I'll just order for my best food. But here's a man who's dying. We know he loved his book. He was a compulsory and frequent visitor of the manual. He will ask and say, when you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus, Atrius, also the books, and above all the patriarchs. So we know that Paul was a frequent visitor to the manual. We know that Paul visited the temple. But then Paul begins to give you another clue to why he was successful. In our text, Paul says, let's read our main text. Paul says, my little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. So here is another place that Paul was constantly visiting. He visited the library. He visited the temple. And I knew he was always a man who stood in the mirror because he was constantly forgiving people and asking to be forgiven. Now we see another place that Paul, the most successful Christian after Jesus, visited. Paul was a compulsory visitor to the maternity ward. He said, my little children who I travail in childbirth until Christ is birthed in you. He uses the imagery of the maternity ward to describe his success. If you're looking for the secret as why Paul was a successful Christian, here is the secret. There is no success without reproduction, and successful people must frequently and compulsorily visit the maternity ward. Turn to your neighbor and say, have you visited the maternity ward? You know, I was there for the birth of all my children. Every one of them. Every one of them. I was there. At the same hospital. I was there. I was there. And it's a powerful thing. Our family began to be successful, began to multiply, because every now and again, me and my wife will walk into that maternity ward, and when we walk into the maternity ward, we walk in as two, and we walk away as three. We walk in as three, we walk away as four. There's something that happens at the maternity ward that every successful man or woman knows. I want to put it to you this morning that this is not just a practice of the Apostle Paul. This is a general practice for everyone that is successful. Go and check, and I'm going to show you a few things. Go and check successful people in our world today. They are going to tell you, yes, I visit the library. Yes, I stand in front of the mirror. Oh, yes, I use a toilet. But there's one more place that they visit compulsorily and frequently, and that is the maternity ward. They are known for their ability to reproduce. You know, you have to reproduce money. You have to reproduce things. So they will visit the maternity ward process. This is really like a maternity place. My little children whom I travailed in childbirth so that Christ can be birthed in you. Paul's telling you a lie that one of the secrets to my success is not these other places. One of the secrets to my success is the fact that I will walk into the maternity ward and I'll walk away with a Christian. I'll walk into the maternity ward and I'll reproduce. And that's why Christianity spread around Europe. I remember one time Paul was trying to minister to the Jews. They wouldn't accept him. He said, listen, I'm going to go to the Gentiles. And Paul was the reason why Christianity spread to the Gentile community. And when you speak to them, he will tell you, I'm a frequent and compulsory visitor to the maternity ward. I said that this is not just Paul's practice. Every successful person you find in the Bible were visitors to the maternity ward. Look at Jesus. You and I are sitting down here. This is a revolution started 2,000 years ago. A man who nobody paid attention to arrives in the seashore of Galilee and began to mess the universe up. One time people came and said, hey, these people who turned the world upside down have come here again. And how did it all begin? He came from heaven to this earth alone. And he came, what did he do? He didn't just parade his knowledge. He didn't just say, I'm the one that knows it. He didn't just say, I'm success epitomized. He didn't just say, I'm success personified. He realized that if I am going to be successful, I am going to do what? I'm going to do what? Reproduce. If I'm going to be successful, let me tell you, success that begins with you and ends with you is no success. Wealth that begins with you and ends with you is not success. I see a lot of Nigerians, they want to be, I don't just want to, you want to drive your car, your big car, everybody else doesn't drive. Huh? You want to live in your, everybody, look at me. No, if you are the only successful person around your network, you and your network are a bunch of failures. So when Jesus came from heaven with divinity, he came from heaven with power. He arrived there, he realized that success will not be measured by what I'm carrying. Success will be measured by my ability to reproduce. If success is not reproduced, then it's not success. Success that can't be reproduced is not success. So he comes around. Look at Jesus. Let's look at the people who would always visit the maternity ward. Here is Jesus. He turns up. He begins to go around. He goes around. He picks up Peter. He picks up John. He picks up James. My goodness. He began to reproduce himself. He so reproduced himself that one time people saw his disciples and said, you guys behave like Jesus. In Antioch, they saw his disciples. That was where Christians were first called Christians. They said, hey, you guys remind me of that Jesus of Nazareth. Why? Because Jesus understood that for success to be success, it has to be reproduced. Turn to your neighbor and say, are you reproducing your success? Oh, people wear best clothes and good clothes. You wear your best shoes and you own your good house and you do this, you do that. As far as Pastor Emmanuel is concerned, show me who you have reproduced. Oh, Pastor, I'm successful. No. How many times have you visited the maternity ward? So Jesus reproduced Peter. He reproduced James. In fact, he even tried to reproduce Judas. Because you're going to see in my teaching, reproduction can go wrong sometimes. So, but we know that Jesus is the most successful person in the universe, and he was constantly visiting the maternity ward. And so you can't talk success without a frequent and compulsory visit to the maternity ward. Look at Moses. Moses began this whole thing. He hears about God spoke to Moses and said, listen, go get these people free from Pharaoh. He goes and he begins to walk it. But listen, Moses would have turned up and said, listen, I am the only one. He's carrying a staff. He could open the Red Sea. He could open the he could turn Nile to become red. Moses had all kinds of power, but not long when Moses started his ministry. Joshua emerged. Joshua emerged. The moment Moses began his ministry, the next thing we see a young man, Joshua appears in the Bible as a young man who was washing, serving Moses. And here is that same principle that Moses went into the maternity ward and came out with Joshua. And that's why Moses is successful, because his success was reproduced. I want to tell you this morning, if your success cannot be reproduced, it is not success. We just posing around. Let me turn around and ask you, whom have you reproduced? Whom have you reproduced? Go from there. Look at Jacob. Jacob gave us the 12 sons of Jacob. Jacob gave up Reuben, then gave us Simeon, then gave us Levi, gave us Judah, gave us Dan, gave us Issachar, all of them. And from that, we have the children of Israel today. And that's why Jacob is respected. He entered the labor room and he reproduced. Elijah reproduced Elisha. So I can go on and on, and you can begin to find the picture. The picture is that successful people are frequent and constant visitors to what? The maternity ward. Turn to your neighbor and say, have you been to the maternity ward? So the question you must ask then is, Pastor, when we visit the maternity wards, what do we come out with? What do we come out with? Well, the first thing you must reproduce when you visit the maternity ward, beyond just biology, is people. People. Let me tell you, 2 weeks ago, one of my best moments this year was 2 weeks ago when Harry was teaching the workers' class. Oh, you don't know my story in this church. There was a time in this church I literally did everything. Literally did everything about teaching, I did. Everything about teaching, I did. Literally. But last week I sat here. I was probably the first in the class when he was teaching. I sat there. I was beaming. You couldn't see the difference. I sat and watched him teach. I said, man, none of you saw me do that. I punched my hand on my chest. I said, I reproduced. Let me ask you a question. Have you reproduced? No, have you reproduced? Oh, I'm successful. Because some of you just want to be the only person. Some of you, if you're not the star, no, you're not in it. If you're not the star, if the thing is not around, surrounding you, if it's not about you, if you're not the star of the occasion, if you're not the star of the occasion, you're not interested. You're not a successful person. Success is success when it is what? People, oh, I've got money. Who else have made money from you? Oh, I am rich. Who else have been lifted because of you? Oh, don't tell me you are rich when you can't reproduce. Don't tell me you are intelligent when you can't reproduce. Don't tell me you're a pastor when listen, I left this church 1 month and I had my man in charge. I remember being in England. My wife said, how is he going? I said, listen, I switched my phone off. Church was running. Why? Because one man reproduced. You can't say you're successful without reproduction. So successful people are men and women who are constantly visiting the world, the maternity ward. So turn to your neighbor and say, have you been to the maternity ward lately? Yeah. There's no success without reproduction. So the first thing you reproduce is people. I wanted to embarrass who sits here? I want to embarrass David today. Maybe he knew and he ran. He's ran from here. I want to ask David, you've been playing this keyboard. Listen, let me tell you. He's an unsung keyboardist. David's probably the best keyboard player in this area. I can tell you that. I mean, this guy's my son. What David does with a keyboard. All the songs we sang before I preached, it was just sign language. I do my sign. He knows what I'm thinking. Right? He knows his stuff. I know when he started. But let me tell him, if you don't reproduce yourself, you're a failure. You know, this Nigerian success, where success begins with a man and dies with a man, is failure. This Nigerian success, where it begins with a pastor and dies with a pastor. It begins with a praise and worship leader, and when he's not around, everything collapses. It begins with a CEO. When he's not around, you know your company is successful when you can walk away from it for 2 months, and in fact, it's even accelerating. Then you know you build something successful. If you've got men who just want to be all about them, all about them, all about them, all about them. If you've got pastors, it must be all about them. Listen, I release power. I've got power, but I give it away. Use it. Use it. Success is about reproduction. Talk to your neighbor and say, success is about reproduction. Listen, let me tell you, there's no real successful person who have not gone to the labor room. I've always told you guys, where is MK Abiola? What happened? What happened? You see, you endanger success the moment you don't reproduce. You endanger success the moment you don't reproduce. And this is the problem. This is the problem with these children we are raising. You know, this is how it works. A man comes out, he comes from a poor background, he works hard, he works hard. Then he becomes a bit, begins to be a bit successful. But somehow he doesn't take the principles of success and reproduce it in his children. They inherit the wealth and then they squander it. Let me tell you, you endanger success when you don't reproduce. Because when you don't reproduce, it doesn't matter what you have built. Without reproduction, what you have built will do what? Will die. It will die. So Moses was a constant visitor to the maternity ward. Jesus was a constant visitor to the maternity ward. Paul said it. He said, my little children who are travailed in childbirth, so that Christ may be formed in you. He uses the word childbirth. He knows that that's how it is. If you are going to reproduce, it is like childbirth. So you reproduce people, and then you reproduce plants. You reproduce people. I've told you, I can count how many people I've reproduced. I'm a reproducer of people. I can tell you about Victor when he came here. Victor, I don't want to embarrass you. I can tell you about Victor when he came here. I reproduce him. Where is Ezekiel? I reproduce him. Yeah. David parents say, Pastor, he's your son. I reproduce him. I could point at people. I boast about it. Listen, if you stop boasting about your money. Yeah? I was tired of it. Stop boasting about your money. Please boast about people who you helped make money. Stop boasting about your success. Please boast about people who you took and gave them success. I'm sick of, listen, I'm a successful person. So don't tell me I'm successful. Tell me, Pastor Emmanuel, I'm responsible for that success. I'm the reason why that guy is successful. I could call every one of them Mark. And I don't want to call the big ones though. If I call the big ones here about these ones, they already, let's leave the big ones. I could go on, and I could boast about it. I reproduced that guy. I reproduced that person. Please, the word is not about you. The word is not about you. Release it. Reproduce people. Let your biggest boast not be your money. Let your biggest boast not be your achievement. But be able to sit down and say, hey, I was part of this guy's success. I was part of that bad guy's success. I was part of that guy. Are you listening to me this morning? So beyond reproducing people, the next thing you reproduce is ideas and plans. Everyone would have noticed that there's something going on in our church. There's something going on in our church. It looks like God is moving. Things are shifting. People are rising up from up and down. People we didn't think could do anything are suddenly rising up and doing stuff. I'm thinking, my wife called me and said, what's going on in that place? I said, my gosh, I don't know. But I know. I went to England in October. It was my sabbatical. Switched my phone off. Did some things with my wife, went to Turkey, came back, and had time for myself. You know where I was? I was in a maternity room. In that 2 weeks, I wasn't reproducing people. Right? I emerged from the maternity ward with ideas. I remember going to England in that prayer. I said, God, what's wrong with this church? What am I not doing right? And God spoke to me clearly. Everything you've seen us do now, I received it. Let me ask you a question. When did you enter the maternity room of prayer and emerge with ideas? When was the last time you entered the maternity room or maternity ward of prayer and came out and you're able to say, okay, God spoke to me. God gave me an idea. Let me tell you something. Remember Moses? Moses one time wanted to go and save the children of Israel, right? You remember? He wanted to go and save the children of Israel. He goes off, he sees one Egyptian. And he does what? Egyptian is fighting Israel. He looks around. I said he looks left, looks right. Nobody's watching. Vroom! He chops off the head of the Egyptian. Let me ask Moses: Is that the plan? You go kill one Egyptian after another. You kill this one, then you kill this one. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And then the next thing, Pharaoh is looking for Moses. Moses runs and runs to the desert of Midian. Then he missed God there. And you know what God gave him? That's a maternity ward. God gave him a plan. Moses had a vision before, but no plan. Now, God gives him a plan. God says, go to Pharaoh. Stop killing the Egyptians. There are too many of them. You can't kill them. Go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh, let my people go. So when you go into the maternity ward of prayer, sometimes you will emerge with a plan. God will give you a plan for that marriage. God will give you a plan for that business. I emerge with a plan. You haven't seen anything yet. There's still 10 things I haven't, I emerge with a plan. God said, you're going to pastor 14,000 people. Do this. I just came back, boom, you know me, I'm doing it. And I haven't finished doing. There are more things to be done this week. More appointments to be made this week. More decisions to be made this week. Why? Because I entered the maternity ward and I emerge with ideas. So you enter, you emerge with people. You enter, you emerge with ideas. Then sometimes you enter, you emerge with a product. I'm talking to business people here. You know, my sister-in-law now is making so much money in Abuja. Doing what? Making smoothies and drinks. That healthy smoothies and drinks. Money, she's like, money's pumping into her account. And 6 months ago, she wasn't doing this. But I remember them going into a time of praying and asking God for what are we going to do. Kelechi, my sister-in-law, is now known in Abuja. Everybody, they're ordering it. She would have sent for me. She said, Pastor, the problem now is refrigeration. Refrigeration. Tomorrow now, naysayers and enemies will start getting envious. You start getting envious. But you wouldn't understand that while you were busy sleeping, while you were busy watching Big Brother Nigeria and making other people rich, she walked into the maternity ward and emerged with a product. Can I tell you something? In all this prayer we pray for you. God give you money. Please stop that. Ask a pastor to lay hands on you and say, God gives you an idea. Give you an idea. I know, yes, angels send a lot to people's accounts. Yeah. Thank God for that. May angels send a lot to your account in Jesus' name. But let me tell you, that's not that. If that's how you want to be rich, you will be poor. Are you listening to me? If you're waiting for angels to send a lot for you, you're waiting. Let me tell you, what you need to do is to enter the maternity ward and say, God, give me an idea. Give me an idea that nobody knows. Give me an idea in ministry that nobody knows. One single idea from God can grow this church in 3 months. One single idea in your business can grow your business in 2 months. Are you listening to me? So you enter the maternity ward, you emerge with people. What? You emerge with what? Ideas, that's plans, and you can emerge with what? Look at Bill Gates. Look at the maker of iPad. Apple, right? What's his name? Steve Jobs. Right? What made these people rich and famous wasn't because they were even too smart. It's just that somehow they emerged with what? With what? An idea. Listen, stop begging for money. Go kneel down and say, God, give me an idea. Give me an idea. Give me an idea. What we want to build in this church are men and women who come with an idea. An idea. I remember one guy in Owa. And this is like 6 months ago. He turns up in this church. Came to the Oba meeting. No money, no this, no that, no that. I said, okay. So you write scripts? Yes. You make movies? Yes. I said, okay. This 6 months, this last year. I said, okay, you know what we're going to do? I said, I'm going to go to speak to contacts in this place. I went and spoke. I got the downstairs hall given to me for that. I said, listen, I've got the downstairs hall. This person will come and partner with us. You have the downstairs hall. We'll start. There's no place where they do plays, proper plays on the mainland, proper plays. I'm not talking about museum center. I'm talking about proper plays where families can come and sit down and watch a play. I gave him that. I said, let's work on this. I get an appointment to see him one day by 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, I don't see him. 2 o'clock, I don't see him. 3 o'clock, I call him. And he tells me, oh, Pastor, he rained. He rained. But let me tell you something. If I promise him to come and take 5,000 naira, he will come there by 1 o'clock. Listen, stop idolizing people who give you money. Please start worshiping people who help you come with ideas that can give you money. Because if you are going to be successful, you are going to learn to enter the maternity ward and a marriage world. A marriage world. Ideas. Ideas. They give you 5,000. Praise the Lord. They give you 2,000. Praise the Lord. Come on, man. God, give me ideas. Give me ideas. Because ideas will then generate what? Generate what? More. So three things you come out with in the maternity world is you come out with people, you come out with plans or ideas, and you come out with products. So let's begin to wrap up. Why is it that people have a problem with reproduction? Why is it that there are pastors who have a problem with reproduction? Why is it that there are pastors who have a problem if Obed begins to rise up? If Obed begins to do, Pastor Obed begins to do well. You know? Remember David and Saul? David and Saul. You know, Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his. And Saul is unhappy. Why is it that there are people who are unhappy when somebody begins to rise up? Why is it that there are inspector generals who are unhappy when there's a superintendent who's killing all the criminals? Why is that? Why is it that in church there are people who don't like reproduction? Right? Why is it that sometimes in church, and this Igwe is really a reproducer, I can tell you that. In fact, sometimes Igwe's reproduction, sometimes I say, please, come on, it's not just learning. It's right? So, there are churches you go to. Praise and worship leader wants to be the only praise and worship leader forever and ever. Forever and ever. There are churches you go to, pastor wants to be the only one forever and ever. There are churches you go to, there are CEOs, there are companies you go to, the CEO wants, why? So the question we must ask is, why is it that people don't like reproducing? Why is it that they don't like visiting the maternity ward? Why is that? Because I want to help you this morning. I've told you I'm a reproducer. I remember one time my wife preached a sermon. I said, she said, you need to reproduce me. I said, listen, I could see me in that. I don't boast about money. I boast about reproduction. That's my own boast. Production. So why is it that people have a problem with production? Why is it that people have a problem with producing? Why could a keyboardist have a problem giving us another keyboardist? Why would a head usher have a problem having another head usher? Why would a pastor have a problem with other people emerging as pastors? Huh? Why is it that some people, when other people are emerging as something, they get angry? Why is that? No, they're going to take my job. They're going to take my position. Well, why is that? Why is that? Well, I'll give you 3 reasons. Are you with me in this sermon? Is this helping someone? Is this helping? Okay, so I'll give you 3 reasons. The first reason is passivity. A lot of people don't know that they are supposed to reproduce. Huh? It's just ignorance. Don't your neighbor say, are you ignorant of this sermon? There are people, you can't blame them. They don't know that they are supposed to reproduce. They don't know. Right? You heard the story of, people can get married and don't know they're supposed to reproduce. People can get a job and don't know they're supposed to train somebody else. So sometimes it's passivity. They are blasé about it. They don't know. They've not been told. They've not been taught that, you're supposed to reproduce. You're supposed, Pastor Emmanuel, you're supposed to reproduce the next pastors of this church. You're supposed to, maybe they don't know. So the first one is passivity. Talk to your neighbor and say, are you passive about reproduction? The second one is pain. They're all P's. Reproduction is painful. Huh? I've followed my wife to the maternity ward. If you're going to the maternity ward with your wife, you better be ready. Better be ready. There's something I didn't see in her eyes that day. Better be ready, you see, and it's not just her. The problem is that she's, oh, and then another woman, I'm thinking, what did I, everyone screaming. I said, I would have just done the Nigerian thing. We don't go to the maternity ward. We wait for a phone call to tell us, she don't born. No. Maternity ward is what a painful thing. And in the same way in real life, reproduction can be what? It can be painful and frustrating. Frustrating. Jesus will look at them and say, come on, how long have I been with you? You're not getting it. That's why people, because of the pain of reproduction, they rather do the job themselves. And I said, no, you don't do it, no. You're doing the job now yourself, and it looks like you're doing it, but you're really killing me at the pastor of this church, because the day you're not here, this thing will collapse. No, pastor, if I give it to them, they don't do it, so I'd rather do it myself. The reason why they're saying that is because reproduction can be what? It's painful. It's painful. You're teaching this guy, he's not getting it. He's kind of frustrating you. He's almost fighting with you. And sometimes he will give up on reproduction. Do this, they won't do it. Go this way, they won't go this way. So people look at that. Paul said, my little children, who he uses the word travail. This is a painful thing. Discipleship, reproduction, training the next CEO, training the next accountant, training the next pastor is a painful thing. They'll frustrate you. They'll frustrate you. You're like, come on, man. Why are you dressed this way? Why are you talking this way? Why are you having this attitude? Sometimes people will give up on people. And because some people are not ready for that nonsense, they say, you know what, just be going. I've felt that way sometimes with some people. Sometimes I feel, let me just leave this woman or this guy, just be going. Right? But you realize that there's a mandate to reproduce. Touch your neighbor and say there's a mandate to reproduce. Because if you don't reproduce, you endanger the success. So the second thing is pain. It is painful. Look at all of you here, mothers. The pain to raise a child. Raise a child. You know, my daughters are growing. And they're growing into some really stunning girls. You know, I'm a Christian. And, you know, me and my wife spoke one time about dowries. And, you know, as Christians, somebody came, we don't do dowries. Let me tell you. I'll take dowries. The amount of things those girls destroyed. Carry something put into the video player. Just destroyed. I must recover all. Let me tell you that. Forget this. You know, the Bible says pursue and recover all. All of you looking at them in the picture thinking, Pastor, let me tell you, before we thought Jesus, right? I must recover all. Because in reproducing them, they're just destroying things. Reproduction is a messy business. Messy, raise a staff, get somebody to follow you. You're trying to raise a man to take a position. It's like, why are you frustrating what I'm trying to do? And it's for your own. Every reproducer is already made. If you endanger the process of reproduction, it is you're in danger, because the person trying to reproduce you is already made. So why are you frustrating reproduction? And so some reproducers will say, I'm not going to reproduce because it's what? It's what? Painful. It's too painful. You know what? Just be going. Let's be going. When we get there, we'll find out. Right? Just be going. Pain. Reproduction is painful. It's painful. The last one is a big one. The reason why people don't like to reproduce is pride. I want to be the only one. No one can preach like me. Huh? No one can preach like me. You know, I took over a church one time in Antoni Village. Here's the beginning of my problem in Antoni. So I took over this church in Antoni Village. So I had these guys in front here who had already been reproduced. Yeah? So they are the ones doing everything. Right? So I turn up, you know what my mentality, I turn up. The kind of church God gave me said I'm going to build. This amount of leadership cannot carry the weight of that church. So what did I start doing? I began to enter here. We're meant to have a meeting this week, isn't it? So I entered, I grabbed Obram. I said, Obram, come, I want to reproduce you. I grab this one. Come, I want to reproduce you. I grab that one. Come, I want to reproduce you. Revolt in the church. This guy's here. Pastor, why are you reproducing them? We want to be, it must be only us. Let me tell you, can I tell you a secret in leadership? In leadership, your biggest problem will be the men and women with one eye. Let me explain. In a system where men and some people have one eye, the people who cause you the biggest problem are not the blind ones. The blind ones cannot see. And if they see anyone who can give them sight, they're happy. But in that system where a lot of people can't see and you have ones who have one eye, they want that status to maintain. Because in the land of the blind, the one man is king. So Pastor Emmanuel turns up and says, I don't want blind people. Everybody at least should have one eye. The one eye people say, no. If everybody has one eye, we can't be king anymore. We want to be indispensable. We don't want to reproduce. Am I too deep in this? We don't want to be. No, it must be us. I'm the only one who can sing. I'm the only one who can preach. But Pastor, what are you doing? This is a problem. Pastor wants to go there. Bro, come. I can reproduce it. Come. Pastor, what are you doing? Problem. You just see the attitude. It's a problem. Come on, man. Stop being small. Don't your neighbor say stop being small. Turn to your neighbor and say the more the merrier. I said the more the merrier. Reproduce. So the talking is pride. We want to be the only keyboard player in the church. Davido. I want to be the only preacher in the church. I want to be the only singer in the church. I want to be the only one who can make things happen in the church. And every attempt to get other people to help, you're frustrated. You have a problem with it. And listen. When somebody has a problem with reproduction, they have a tiny heart. It's actually a function of a tiny heart. And it's a sign of pride. Only me. I'm the only one. I'm the only one. Elijah said, God, everybody, they've killed everyone. He said, I'm the only one standing. God said, no, you're not. You can't. Let me tell you, God will always raise himself a remnant. There's never going to be a time when it's going to be only you. So the third reason is pride. Don't you neighbor say pride. We want to be indispensable. Let me digress a little bit and do some leadership. Let me tell you. Indispensability in a church is going to be the biggest danger in the church. Let me say that again. Every time you see a woman or a man who is becoming indispensable, you're in trouble. Especially if indispensability lands on the lap of somebody whose loyalty and trust you can't count on. Imagine if your company is indispensably dependent on him. Yeah? And one day he stands up and he does what? He walks away. What happens to the company? Huh? And let me tell you what generally happens. The indispensable people are always the people who will have a problem with you raising other people. They don't want you to raise other people. They want to hold your balls. They want to be that one where that the CEO can't move. You literally have to beg. People want to be in a position where, please, I'm the owner of the company, but please, no, we can't do this. I'm indispensable. If you do this, I'll leave. If you do this, I'll walk away. Listen, rise up and reproduce people. Make every person in your church dispensable, including yourself. Begin from yourself as the pastor and make yourself expendable. Make yourself dispensable and walk that. If he begins to be indispensable, I'll make him expendable. I told him, I want 3 praise and worship leaders. You can't hold this church to ransom. Let me tell you, my plan this year is none of you here can hold this church to ransom. Because for every man in this church, I'm going to reproduce 10 more people. The day you don't want to come, I say, okay, go and rest. If your service in this church is beginning to get into your head, sit down. Other people will do what? And the day I decide also, the day I begin to feel like, God would also tell me to go on. So start dealing with indispensability and begin. You are a success when you have made yourself expendable in that company. Every CEO who makes himself expendable in that company has built a successful company. Pastor, make yourself expendable. Are you listening to me? So the third reason is what? Pride. 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 I want to be the only one. I want to be the only one. Remember James and John? They go to Jesus. They say, Jesus, in your kingdom. Me and my brother. We want to be the one sitting on your left and the one sitting on your right. No. Your job, leadership, can I say something? Your job in an organization is to raise important people, is to raise relevant people, not to raise indispensable people. Let me say that again. This is leadership now. Are you listening? Somebody listening? Are there people in leadership here? Your job as a leader, not just in church, is to raise people who are what? Important. So they're important. Hey, Okonkwo, you're important. Vito, you're important. Second thing, they are what? Relevant. Well, listen. When somebody begins to be indispensable, he is a danger to the organization and to himself. And your job also for your pastor is to rise up so your pastor is not indispensable. Pastor, why are you still carrying chairs? Huh? Pastor, why are you still on the road? Pastor, Pastor, I could do that now. It's not a bad thing. Because I don't own the church, it's the kingdom. Your job is to make sure that no single person here can hold the church to ransom. No single person here can hold your company to ransom. If they go 2 months leave, in fact, when they come back, they'll find that the organization has done what? Have moved on. That's what you should. And their leaders, I'm teaching you my leadership principles. So indispensability is about the top problem is pride. Turn to your neighbor and say pride. They want to be the only one. So let's end this sermon. Let's look at the possibilities. The possibilities. So Jesus turns up. One person. Boom. James, John, Peter. 12 of them. Boom. 72 of them. Boom. Peter preaches one day. 3,000. Boom. The whole world. Look at the possibilities. Look at the possibilities. Apple is more than $1 trillion worth in the stock market. More than 1 trillion. Apple has a GDP more than your country. Have you worked out? Apple's GDP is more than our nation. A company. Right? Look at the possibility. Look at what happens if you and I say, God, this year I am going to do what? I'm going to do what? Reproduce. The possibilities are infinite. I mean, imagine what could happen in Ikorodu with Sister BC and Brother Gideon. They go there and start. They don't say, we're going to be the only one. If she goes there and says, I'm going to make myself expendable. I'm going to come here and in 6 months, my target is in 6 months, I'm not going to be needed. That's the right mentality. The possibility. Imagine if Obed makes himself expendable by raising other people. And then the other people he raised begin to make themselves expendable by raising other people. And then, can you see the possibility? Can you see the possibility of, imagine from the maternity ward with an idea that could completely transform. Listen, God, give me money, change, God, financial breakthrough. Listen, can you tell that prayer? Stop asking for financial breakthrough. Why don't you start saying, God, give me what? Give me what? An idea. Give me an idea. Give me plans. Give me plans. Can you see the possibility what can happen in the Cornerstone Church if everyone is doing what? Reproducing. Our church is started. My problem now is that it's only what? Only what? Only David. It's a failing church. Only David. I was doing something with Oba and I realized I can only do Oba and another. I can do only one time. Well, meanwhile, I can do Oba on Wednesday and do another church on the same Wednesday and just say, hey, keyboard A, go to Oba. Keyboard this B, go to this place. Keyboard is sick. No, but now we have to program it because the young man, Davido, has not bothered to do what? Reproduce. I want you to stand up this morning. Stand up this morning. I want you to put your hands on your chest. Put your hands on your chest. Declare after me and say, God, this year I am going to reproduce. This year I will visit the maternity ward of prayer. I am emerging with ideas that will change my finances and ideas that will change my situation. I am going to become a producer of people. I am going to be wealthy, but I'm going to produce people who are wealthier. My success will not start and end with me. My success will begin with me and end beyond me. I'm going to bring people to Jesus. I'm going to bring people to Jesus. Salvation is not the only thing for me. Salvation is not just for me. Salvation is not just for me. I'm going to be a platform where people are birthed into the kingdom. This year, I'm not just bringing people to church. I'm bringing people to know Jesus. I'm going to come to the end of this year and be able to boast that I brought this one to Jesus. I brought this one to Jesus. I trained this one. I trained that one. This is my declaration today. In Jesus' name, and all God's people said, you've got a clap offering. That's all I have for you. You can sit down.